This is the IOA Podcast, a space for truth, tenderness, and becoming whole, one breath at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the IOA Podcast, the space where we heal loudly and live softly. I am Dr. Malaika, and I am so glad that you are here. If you're brand new to this space, I want you to pull up a chair and get comfortable. And if you've been with me since season 1, you already know how this goes. Thank you for keeping me company. I do not take it lightly that you keep coming back. And before we get into today's episode, I want to do a little housekeeping because this community is growing and I want to keep building it with intention. If this show has met you in a moment where you needed it, 3 quick asks. First, I want you to make sure that you hit the like and subscribe wherever you are listening. So if you're listening on Apple Podcast, if you're listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or if you're watching us on YouTube or anywhere else that podcasts live, I want you to make sure that you are hitting subscribe or follow. Following that is the single most powerful thing that you can do to help this work reach people who need it, and that is to leave a review. So if you are on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review with one honest sentence about how this podcast has helped you in your journey. Reviews help new listeners decide basically to trust us with their time. And then third, I want you to share any episode of the podcast. It could be from season 1, it could be from current season 2, with someone who has been carrying something quietly. And that is part of the community care in action that this show is about. All of our platforms will be linked in the show notes for the audio versions of the show. And just remember, the Substack companion to this episode will be live today, earlier in the morning. And our paid subscribers will also get access to an extended R.E.S.T format practice for this week. And this is specifically targeting towards caregivers and those who are responsible for the care of others. And we'll tell you more about that when we get closer to the close of the episode. So after all of those housekeeping things, I want us to get into it because I feel like this episode has been something that I was looking forward to being released to you all. And I think it's something that'll meet you exactly where you are right now. So let's take a quick break and we're coming back and we're going to get right on into the episode fully. Be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. And now we are going to get into the meat of this episode. So we're going to start with our opening and our framing of what we are talking about today. So this episode is titled After the Flowers Fade, Healing for the Ones Who Hold Everything Together. And so when I was planning out season 2 and the dates when these episodes would actually air, I thought about the timing of this episode airing 2 days after Mother's Day. And so I am a mother. And so it is something that is one of my greatest joys, seeing my daughters grow into the women that they have grown into and the journey that they're still on. And so I believe that it is something that is special. And there's a lot of different ways to care for others. And I am fortunate enough to where I am able to care for those who I happen to have carried and given birth to. So if you celebrated Mother's Day, I pray and I hope that it was something tender for you. I hope that someone put something in your spirit or something in your hand and was just nice with you without even having to be asked twice. I hope that the day had a softness to it that you actually were able to feel, and it didn't feel like performance. It didn't feel like you had to be managed. You actually felt that warmness. But I also know that for many of us, days after Mother's Day can be some of the loneliest ones of the year. For some, Mother's Day itself, for a variety of reasons, is also a lonely day. What we often see is that the flowers that you get on that day, the celebration, the brunch dishes, and all the different things, these things are now gone. The text messages and the posts have quieted down, and the people that you held all weekend or that held you, the children, the partner, extended family, all of these different things, the grief that you may have been holding on to for a mother that you lost or that you never had relationship, they still need what they have always needed from you. And so the world needs you to show up. They still need you to hold it together. They still need you to keep going. And I know that this sounds very specific to women. And while I am a woman, I do feel as if caregiving is not something that is just specific to us. And so I do believe that this also applies to men who are responsible for taking care of families. So I want you also to receive this message as well. The volume of care that you often pour out doesn't pause because a certain day comes. Just because a Sunday comes that puts you at the center, Mother's Day, Father's Day, doesn't mean the volume of responsibility that you have is put on pause. So today, I want us to have an honest conversation about what it actually costs to be the one who holds everyone together, not in a way that centers feeling resentment. And it's not a way that romanticizes exhaustion, because you know I do not believe in that, but in a way that tells the truth, because honesty, in my experience, is always where the healing actually begins. So, this episode is for all the caregivers. This episode is for the mothers, whether it's biological, adoptive, step, if that's what you use, foster, the chosen mothers. It's also for the fathers, biological, adoptive, etc. It's for the daughters who are doing the mothering because their own mother could not do it. Um, it's for the sons who are stepping into the father role because their fathers couldn't do it. The women who never had children of their own, but have raised an entire community. Same with the men who were not able to father children, but have put in to sports teams by coaching and being present for young men and young women in their community. This is for the aunties, the uncles, the godmothers, the godfathers, the teachers who are still buying their students lunch out of their pocket, the neighbors who are watching somebody else's child for free because that is just what we do. This is for you. This episode is also for the one who may not get a card on Mother's Day or Father's Day, the one who chose maybe not to be a mother intentionally and have been quietly punished for it by family and culture and society. This is for the woman or the man who may have wanted to be a parent and could not, and who is still grieving that particular thing, the person whose children are no longer here with them. And so that gives a unique dynamic for them. And they're holding a name that nobody else says out loud anymore. This is for that person whose parent is still alive, but they're unsafe to be in relationship with them. I know Mother's Day is probably one of the most popular days of the year that is celebrated. Mothers often get the shout out. So that was the purpose of the timing of this episode. But just remember that there can still be a quiet ache instead of celebration. There are still going to be women who are mothering their own mothers now, who are navigating the illness of their parents, of aging, memory loss, and who are doing it without any kind of applause. So, if any part of this describes you or someone you know, this episode is squarely on your shoulders and for you. This is a way to sit with you and make you know that you are not walking alone. So, today we are going to walk through four things. We're going to talk about what caregiving actually costs the body, because if we do not name it, we cannot tend to it. Two, we are going to address the myth of the strong one and the ancestral weight that story carries, especially for Black women. And then three, what we inherited from those ahead of us or our ancestors that preceded us about care. We've inherited the long history of caregiving being extracted from us without any recognition and how that shows up in our nervous systems today. And then four, we're going to talk about what it actually looks like to be mothered by yourself. And we're going to do an Aya pause as a daily practice that holds it. So, this again, it's not a self care episode. Self care, the way the world sells it, is candles, bubble baths, staycations. And while I tell you all the time that is fine, that is not what we're doing here. Today, we're doing root system work. The purpose of this space is to do root system work. And the purpose of the book that is the foundation of this podcast is to get to the root, to heal the root. This is the kind of work that doesn't photograph well, but it allows you to hold up your whole tree. So let's take another break and let's begin the work. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. I hope that the intro was what you needed to get you started on this conversation that we're having on today. We are talking about in this segment what caregiving costs the body, because I think that it's important for us to know that there is a cost that comes with us being responsible and caring for the well being of someone else. And so I want us to start with the body because it is the foundation of everything that we do. We are not able to do the things we do without our body being in the place it needs to be. So we love to talk about caregiving as if it's just an emotional thing, as if it's just a logistical experience. But we can't get away from the fact that caregiving, especially if it's chronic, the kind that it's not a season, but it's just a way of being, is also a physiological experience. The body keeps the score. I say this all the time. It keeps the record. If you have spent years being available and being the one who is always there for others, always managing, always holding space for everyone else, your nervous system has organized itself around that dynamic. Your body now has learned to defer its own signals so that it can stay attuned to other people's signals. Hunger for you gets postponed. Your rest almost has to get earned instead of just being given. Your emotions get filtered through the lens of who needs what before they are allowed to land. You learn to interrupt your own needs so quickly that you forget that you were having one in the first place. Let me name some of the ways I feel like that this can show up and what the research has shown, because I want you to recognize yourself in this, not for the sake of pathologizing, excuse me, but for the sake of naming what is already true. You eat your meal standing up. You finish what is left on the plate instead of making yourself one. You go to bed last and you get up first. You drink coffee on an empty stomach because you forgot to be hungry. You can name every prescription, every appointment, every preference of every person in your household. But if I were to ask you what you actually wanted for dinner, you would have to think about it for a long time. And so I don't want you to feel judgment because I am speaking of myself and the place I used to be in that I had to work to be better intentional with my own self and my own cues and needs. Because we have learned that wanting has been outsourced for so long for us that that need and that signal has gone quiet. I think about a client that I had a few years ago who we were doing virtual sessions since we've been doing that since COVID. And she used to do a lot of times her sessions from her vehicle. And oftentimes She would do it in between the hustle and bustle of her day. And a lot of her hustle and bustle was, I got to get my therapy session in before I have to go pick up my children. And then after I pick up my children, I have to go through all of these different things. And so a lot of what I heard in her voice that was not necessarily being expressed in her words, that this was the only time for her in her day or in her week that she was doing something about herself or for herself, that someone was asking her how she was doing. I was probably one of the only people in the week that would ask her that. She was a parent. She had multiple children. She was also dealing with an aging parent. And she was a person that outwardly in her community was loved and seen by people, or at least people thought they saw her, but they didn't realize what she was sacrificing in order to show up in the ways that she did for so many others. This is not about a personality flaw, so I don't want you all to take it in that way. This is just what happens when our nervous system has been on call for so long without relief that our body does exactly what it has been trained to do. It's now been conditioned into this particular rhythm. And unfortunately, this rhythm is out of sync. This is a concept that I want to give you a name for because I feel like it shows up the most in caregivers more than almost any other group that I either work with or see from clinical practice or just in community. And it's called allostatic load. Allo is ALLOSTATIC. Allostatic load is basically just a cumulative wear and tear on the body that comes from chronic stress and chronic adaptation. It is what happens when the systems that are designed to respond to the occasional threats are forced to respond consistently and they don't have a real recovery window. So the cortisol levels are starting to spike and then they should drop after the stressful event. The heart rate rises and then eventually it should settle. That's the pattern. That's what should happen. Our autonomic system is designed this way. The muscles should contract and then they should release when it gets the all clear signal. The inflammation comes, it resolves itself, and it goes back to what the balanced normal level is. People that are carrying high allostatic load in their communities are very rarely the people who appear to be struggling. They are the ones who are still functioning. They're still showing up. They're still smiling when they're in conversation. They are still making it to the meetings on time, but their body is paying the price that the calendar does not have a way to record. So here's the thing, the body is not asking you to do less necessarily. The body is asking you to feel more and to honor and to respect your boundaries and capacity. It is asking you to stop overriding those signals that you're getting before they become bigger ones. So you get a headache, you have tension in your body, your breathing is shallow, you have that Sunday night dread because you know that Monday's coming. And for some reason, with Monday, it seems like all the responsibilities just roll back over in a wave. These are not interruptions to your caregiving. These are the signals that your body is trying to give you so that you can continue to give to yourself or start giving to yourself if you're not actually doing that right now. If you keep ignoring your body, it's going to get louder. And by say it's going to get louder, the way it gets louder is you have flare ups, you can have an autoimmune issue, you can have panic attacks, you have unexplained sadness on random mornings and out throughout the week, and nothing's really wrong. Your body is not a problem for you to manage. Your body is your temple, and it's a member of your household that often gets overlooked for a very long time. And what your body is asking quietly to do is to be brought back to the table. It's asking you, name this as your first act of care because you cannot tend to what you have not named, and you cannot tend to others if you have not prioritized yourself in the midst of your care practices. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and We're going to go a little bit deeper into the episode. Be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. I hope that you are enjoying where we are going with this particular episode. I hope it is something that is meeting you where you are right now, because that is the purpose of this show. We want to meet you in a practical, relevant place and not just have lofty topics and titles that we are talking about. And because of that, I want us to get into talking about the myth of the strong one. And so I want us to talk about a role that I feel like a lot of us were assigned before we even consented to taking this role. And that's the role of the strong one. Many of us were given this role early in life. Sometimes it came by our family dynamics because we were the oldest, or we were the only girl, or we were the only boy, or were the one that seems to handle things the best in the family. Sometimes it's by culture. So when we belong to a community that is survived by leaning on people who could hold the most, that dynamic is created. Sometimes it's by necessity, when the adults around us could not be the adult, so we became one before we were ready to be one. And listen, there's real dignity in that. So I do not want to dismiss the dignity and the admirability of being that person to show up. There is a real ancestral inheritance in this kind of strength that I believe is the foundation of holding our community together. I am not standing here to dismiss that at all. The women and men in my family, predominantly women, because I had a lot of women that raised me. I had an amazing father, but I had a lot of strong women that were part of my core circle, my grandmothers, my mom, etc., and just women that served as surrogate sisters and mentors. They basically taught me what it means to be a person that other people can rely on, and I still carry that for the rest of my life. It's something that I'm still believing in and I still embody. But there's also a shadow side, I believe, to this that we don't talk about. We need to name it, because pretending that it doesn't exist is what keeps us trapped inside this dynamic. When strength becomes the only thing you're allowed to be, several things start to happen. Softness now becomes dangerous. Need starts to look as something that you need to hide, and asking for help becomes shameful, because asking implies that you cannot and you have not built your identity on a foundation that is safe and secure for you. So now you got to grit your teeth. You got to manage. You got to handle things. You become so good at handling things that even the people closest to you stop noticing when you're not okay. Because if we're being honest, you trained them. We trained them. I'm going to say we, so you don't feel like this is just a personal attack. We've trained them over the years to expect that we will always be the one who is fine. And then a different thing actually starts to happen, which is actually more painful. And we often don't talk about this, right? The people who love you start to praise you for the very thing that's wearing you down. They tell you, you're so strong. I don't know how you do it. And what feels like a compliment actually lands almost like a life sentence. Because every time they say it, what your body hears is, I have to keep doing this. I can't let them see otherwise. The praise now becomes a cage. And the cage just gets harder for you to leave, because it's more decorated as the praises come from people. What we have to acknowledge is that healing, like actual, slow, vulnerable, intentional healing, becomes something we assume is for other people. It's for the ones who are not yet strong enough to get through without it. We start to believe that healing is a beginner's practice, that advanced people like us do not need it. We just keep going. That's the myth. And it's a beautiful, dangerous lie. Here's what the strong one needs to hear today. The strength is real. The strength is not the lie. The lie is that the strength is supposed to be the entire shape or story for you. The lie is that being soft somehow disqualifies you. The lie is that you have to keep proving every single day that you can carry it, or the room will stop respecting you. The family will stop relying on you. The people will stop trusting you. So you keep carrying it, even when it's killing you, especially when it's killing you. And I want to offer a different definition of strength for you. Strength is not the absence of need. Strength is the capacity to hold both your power as well as your tenderness in the same body without allowing one to cancel out the other. Strength is being able to lead a household and weep about it on the same night. Strength is being the person everybody calls and also being the person who calls somebody else when she just doesn't have it anymore. Strength is full spectrum. It's not flat. The flat version of strength, which is often what the world rewards in public, is basically that you have to keep going and be in that hustle mentality, always on the go, no time for downtime, thinking that rest is laziness. The full spectrum version of strength is what keeps you alive and private. What I'm asking you today to do is to trade one for the other, and I want you to do it slowly. Do it quietly, do it at your pace in your time. If you've been the strong one for so long that you do not know what you would be without it, I want you to hear this from me, not only with both your ears, but I need you to hear it with your heart. You are not the roles you occupy. You are the person underneath those roles. And that person is still in there and has been waiting. She or he is not behind, not broken, has simply just been quiet because the room was loud. The room needs to get quieter, and it can. And the room will have space to hold this version of you too. So I want us to take a break. And I think that this is a good way to pause before we get into this next segment where we talk about what I think is probably one of the most important things that we're going to get into in this episode. And that is what we inherited about what care is supposed to look like. We will take this pause and we will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. And as said on the other side of this break, we are going to get into talking about the thought processes and the practices that we have inherited when it comes to care. Before I get into this part of the episode, I do want to make sure that I shout out our WDJY listeners in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. I did not do that at the top of the episode, and that was my oversight. Blame my heart, blame my mind and not my heart, because it was not my intention to forget to shout them out. So I do want to make sure that I give them their just due, because they are also with me, and they have been with me since the end of last year. And I appreciate them being with us and being a part of this journey. So let's talk about what we have inherited. Let's widen the lens, because oftentimes when we talk about caregiving or being the person that's a strong one, especially for Black women and women of African descent, It's not a story that starts with our own lifetimes. It is a story that goes back centuries. And we do not do this work honestly without naming that specific dynamic. Let's talk about the labor of care. Let's talk about the emotional, physical, domestic, and communal labor of care that has been extracted from Black people for centuries without compensation, without recognition, and without reciprocity. When we think about the Black woman, we have mothered other people's children while our own children were sold from underneath us. We have held the emotional weight of households that did not consider us full human beings while we were the steady hands during slavery, during Jim Crow, during the civil rights movement, during every wave of crisis that came through our communities. And we are still, if we're being honest, the steady hands now. And just, me thinking about that hits me in my chest because even with the conditions that are going on in our country right now, there is still this unreasonable expectation, even with the way that they have treated us, that we have to continue to care for community. And the world for a very long time, has treated specifically Black women's care as a renewable resource, as if it would just keep coming, as if it did not cost us personally anything, not realizing that it cost us everything. That history lives in our bodies, whether we know it or not. It lives in our hesitation to ask for help because we have been culturally trained to expect that the help to come is going to come from us. It's not going to come towards us, it's going to come from us. It lives in our suspicion of rest because rest was never offered to our foremothers and forefathers, and we inherited the belief that it has to be earned. It lives in our complicated relationships that we have with softness because softness was never safe for the women that we come from, and the body remembers what was not safe. It also lives in our resilience. If we're being honest, in our community, the way our community tending is carried out, even in our humor, even in our capacity to feed 30 people from a kitchen that was designed for four, to house 20 people in a 2-bedroom unit, in the way we gather, the way we laugh, the way we can hold a whole room. The same history that wounded us also gave us this extraordinary capacity. And when I say that, I want you to understand that both of these things are true. That's why I said that there's a beauty here, but there's also a danger here. We need to honor both of these things. We need to honor the wounds and celebrate this extraordinary capacity that it has given us. Think about where you first learned what care looked like. For many of us, it was the kitchen, right? We watched our grandmothers and our aunties and our mothers at the stove in the kitchen, who after every funeral, they would be preparing food before anyone asked. We think about the church mothers who knew who was sick before it was announced, and they showed up with plate and they showed up with prayer. And the web of women threading through all the generations that continue to hold entire neighborhoods together without a budget. They didn't have any kind of special infrastructure put together. They didn't often get recognition. That is where we learn this. And like I said, it is beautiful. But it is also where we learn that the cost of being a woman in our lineage is that you give until there's nothing left, and then you give from the next layer down. I don't know what layer you're looking to get it from, but it's not there. Because honoring our foremothers does not require to live inside their wounds forever. And when we're looking for that next layer to give us the strength that we do not have, that is what we're doing. We're living inside their wounds. The point of inheritance is not to repeat, it is to receive, to examine what you have received, Keep what serves you and put down what does not. Our foremothers and forefathers built the armor so that one day we could put it down. I know that sounds like we're not at that place yet. You're like, Dr. Malika, we are definitely not there. But I do believe that the putting down is part of our inheritance that we can start leaning into even in the current times. There's the ability, like I said, to honor both. Some of us are the first women in our family lines to even ask the question, what would it look like to receive care the way I give it? Some of us are the first men in our families to be able to be in the position to actually think that care for ourselves is something that is possible for you to do. This question is a sacred question. This mindset is a generational shift that you are doing and saying, but you're asking it out loud in a way that shows that you are on the path of ancestral healing. You are saying that I acknowledge and I honor where I came from. I know the dynamics that were created in me because of this, but I am going to go on the journey to heal. Your forefathers and foremothers are not offended that you have softness. They would not be offended by that. They wouldn't be disappointed about having boundaries. They're not betrayed by the fact that you have to see a therapist to work through things that you're going through. They will be relieved, right? Relieved that somebody in their lineage finally got the opportunity to put it down. Somebody finally got a breath, a time to breathe, and a time to receive. So if you are the man or woman in your family who is doing this work, going to therapy, naming the patterns, learning to ask for help, learning to receive, know that you are not breaking the lineage, you are extending it, and you're also making it healthier. You are doing what our foremothers prayed for on their knees, the things we never saw, in the rooms we never entered. They did not survive what they survived so that we could just live our life surviving too. They survived so that we could begin to be whole, functioning, healthy human beings. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back. We're going to do our Aya pause for this episode, and it's aptly titled Being Mothered by Yourself. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. As always, we are going into our Aya pause. This brings me to the practice and the part of the episode that I love to share with you. And we are going to talk about what it actually looks like to be mothered by yourself. And when I say mothered, I do not mean cared for in that generic wellness aesthetic type of way. I mean to be held with a very specific quality of attention that you would offer to a child who was struggling, tired, and needed you. I mean the same patience that you extend when your child cannot find their words, the same gentleness that you offer to a friend that's in grief, the same way that without judgment, you give presence to people that you love on their worst days. I want that turned inward towards you. This is going to be offered to you by you. You are going to mother yourself. And mothering yourself does not mean becoming someone who needs less. If we're honest, we could say this is, if you're male, you could say that this is fathering yourself. Or if you want to look at this in a different perspective, maybe what you needed, you had mothering. And what you needed is the fathering, the protection. Whatever this looks like for you, I want this to show up for you. It does not mean reducing the care that you give to other people. It does not mean stepping away from the people who depend on you. It means turning the quality of your attention back towards yourself with the same consistency, the same gentleness, the same devotion that you offer to everyone else. It's the practice of being a consistent caregiver to your own life. So let's put this in the language of the IOA, and look at this IO pause. Remember, you don't have to earn this break. It's not a reward for finishing your to-do list. It's a breath that you take on purpose. In the middle of your life that is trying to take it from you, you are doing this on purpose. So for caregivers, this pause and this moment is not a small thing. You're going to be breathing deeply, as we often do during this time, and allowing your body to relax and reset. You are now signaling your nervous system that you are still here, that you have not dissolved into everyone else's needs, and that you're still the center of all the giving that needs to be done. Here's how I want this to look for you this week. 3 times a day, I want you to set some type of quiet signal. It can be a chime on your phone, a sticky note. It can be the moment you wash your hands before a meal, the moment you sit down in your car before you start the engine. Whatever that signal is in your life, make sure that it works. When that signal lands or happens, I need you to stop for 30 seconds. Take 3 deep, intentional breaths in through the nose and breathe out through your mouth. On that first breath, notice where you are. Pay attention to the location of your body. Pay attention to what's around you, what you're feeling. And then on that second breath, notice what your body is doing. Notice the doing of the body. How does it feel? What am I experiencing? And then on the third breath, tell your body in your own words something that you know to be true. It could be something simple as I'm still here, or I do not have to brace myself right now, or my body matters too. 30 seconds, 3 times a day. Do it for a week. That roughly is about 10 and a half minutes of practice. That's all. I'm telling you, your nervous system will start to track the differences. The body will start to learn that being seen by you is something that it can rely on. That the same attention you have been pouring out is now in small doses coming home. And here's what I want to add before we take our last break to go out into the close of the show. This IO pause is just an entry point, but it's held together by the larger framework within the book. Remember, we talk about the R.E.S.T framework, which is reconnect, embody, speak, intend. And so I want you to remember that this framework is especially useful for you. Remember that you need to reconnect the practice of asking yourself what your body needs, not what other people needs, what you need. All right? Don't defer it. Remember that you need to embody this practice by giving yourself the time to carry back to your body on purpose the things that you are so often giving away and releasing to other people. We don't want you to be stuck. Make sure that you are allowing yourself to replenish so that you continue to move forward. We want you to speak and give voice to your truth. There's different ways that you can do this, and I want you to identify the ways that work best for you. And then the last thing that you know that I am big on is tending. This is choosing yourself, choosing one act of care for you every week on purpose, and not when everything else is done. So this is your commitment. This is what you are going to do this week. And we are going to close out, take a deep breath in before we get out of here. Take this break, and then when we come back, we are going to go ahead and close out the show. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, to the episode. And we are going to close out this particular show. But before I close, I want to ask you something. I don't want you to answer this quickly. I want you to let the question kind of sit with you. Who takes care of you the way you take care of everything else? If the answer came easily, I'm actually glad for you because of that. Hold on to that person or that practice. I want you to tend to it because that is precious. If the answer made you pause or made something tighten in your chest or made you realize that the answer is nobody, not even you, then this episode is exactly where you need it to be. You're not behind, you're not broken. You have simply been giving from a place that has not been filled in a long time. And we can start here today. It can be very small. The pause does not have to be long, like we talked about in the eye of pause. It just has to be yours. So I want you to commit and dedicate this to those who are in similar positions that needed this, to the woman who lost her mother, whether it was last month or years ago, to the man who lost his father or didn't have one. This is for you. And special shout out to all the moms and all the women who hold together community and hold together relationships. I hope that something that was said during this episode gave you a recharge that will be helpful. I want you to take all of these things from this episode with you into the week. Remember that your body is keeping a record, and I want you to listen to it. The small signals that you're getting are not interruptions. They're about giving your body the care that it needs. Remember that the strong one is a real role, but it was never supposed to be the entirety of who you are. Strength is not the absence of need. It is the capacity to hold both your power and your tenderness in the same body. And remember, you're not breaking the lineage by softening yourself, you're extending it. Your forefathers and foremothers built the armor so that one day you would have the ability to put it down. Remember the practices that we gave you in the Eye of Pause. Remember that the Substack episodes, our Substack companion material will be up for you shortly. So I want you to remember again, like and subscribe to the show on the different networks where we are available to be found. Make sure that you leave reviews, 5 stars, that all of that is helpful for what we are doing. And then I do want to remind you that we have all these amazing ways that you can stay connected. We have the book, Rooted in Resilience. And let me grab my copy. I always keep a copy next to me here. You can get your copy of the book, Rooted in Resilience. You can buy it on my website. It is on the screen, but it is MalikaMBrown.com/store/P/rooted in resilience. This will also be in the show notes for the audio versions of the episode. Remember that we have our Speak Pipe way for you to leave messages for me. We want to hear from you at speakpipe.com/the IOA. Don't forget again about the Substack community. Make sure that you subscribe. You can be a paid or a free subscriber. It is the ioa.substack.com. And I think that it's an amazing companion to what we do here on the show. So as always, remember that we are healing loudly and living softly in this space. And that is my prayer for you, not only today, but for the days coming and for the rest of your life. Until we meet again, remember to live softly or live loud or heal loudly and live softly. And we'll be back on next week. Have a great one. This is the IOA Podcast, a space for truth, tenderness, and becoming whole, one breath at a time. Make sure to like,